Do you think God is in heaven and he gets spiritual goosebumps whenever he hears 17th century English? Ooh, well, I can't believe that. Ooh, that makes me want to do something. You think God does that? Yeah, we think somehow that's more holy. A little thee, a little thou. That makes God listen to us more. No, Jesus said. Prayer is not meaningless repetition. It's not using the right words in the right places. In fact, did you know some of the most effective prayers in the Bible, some of the most powerful, were some of the simplest prayers? Remember in Luke 18, Jesus told the story about two men who went up to the temple to pray. One was a Pharisee, and the other was a tax gatherer. The Pharisee was standing and praying with his eyes lifted up toward heaven, and he prayed a long time, and most of the time he was telling God how holy he, the Pharisee, was. But in contrast, here was this tax gatherer who was so humble he wouldn't even lift his eyes up into heaven. But instead he beat his chest and he prayed this simple prayer: Lord, be merciful to me, the sinner. And Jesus asked the question, which man left the temple justified, made right with God? Prayer is not some complicated theological formula. It's not a long repetition of the same thing over and over again meant to show people our spirituality. Well, if prayer is not a public display of spirituality or a complex theological formula, then what is prayer? Everybody have your pen? I want you to write this down. Okay, here's a definition of prayer. I want you to write this down word for word and then think about it. Okay, everybody ready? Here's the definition of prayer. Prayer is talking to God. Prayer is talking to God. Nothing more, nothing less. It's talking with God. That's all it is. Talking to God. Now, our talking to God takes all kinds of different forms. In Ephesians 6, verse 18, Paul says, with all prayer and petition, pray at all times. Literally, in the Greek text, pray with all kinds of prayers. Sometimes when we're talking with God, we ask him to do something for us. That's called petition. Sometimes we ask God to do something for somebody else. That's intercession. Sometimes we tell God and we admit we've blown it. That's called confession. Sometimes we express gratitude to God for what he's already done. That's thanksgiving. And sometimes we just talk with God for no other reason than we want to talk with him. Tell him about our day. Tell him about our feelings. Tell him about what's going on in our life. That's called conversation. The Bible says prayer is simply talking with God. Now, how do you have a successful prayer life? Paul says if you want to become like Jesus, prayer's got to be a priority in your life. How do you